Rowan from Silver Tiger Media, and of course today we're very, very privileged to be sitting with the one and the only Tobias Forge from Ghost. So welcome very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time today. It's a tremendous thrill to speak with you, particularly after last night's show in Melbourne. And I guess the most important news to discuss straight away is right at the end of the show, right after Square Hammer, you came out on stage and announced that there might be a little bit of a tour later in the year.
Not later than in the year, but we hope to come back within a year.
Within a year, tremendous.
And that is the plan. That was my intent with coming here now in the first place.
Indeed.
Yes, because I've noticed that we haven't been here for 5 years, and 5 years of absence is not. It's not ideal if you want to come back on untested waters. And the powers that be, promoters, wanted us to do this festival first.
Yes.
In order for us to know what we are and where we stand. But the plan all along in my head was just to come down here and do this and get back as soon as possible to do our real thing, because that was very much a short trailer snippet of what we actually, the show that we have cultivated in America and in Europe.
Most certainly, and what a reaction it had too last night, although I must admit that I think the initial thoughts of squeezing bottoms a great deal in the crowd from Cardinal Copia was tremendous in its own right. Is there any particular significance to the squeezing and wobbling of bottoms?
No, it just sounds fun.
It does sound fun indeed, and of course the crowd reaction was absolutely superb. How has your visit been to Australia in general this time? As you say, 5 years is quite a long while. Has it been a fun trip?
Very. I mean, the 2 times we've been here previously were tremendously joyous, and I have grown extremely fond of being here. I love Melbourne, I love Sydney, I love Adelaide, I love, I love being here. It's just, there's just something in the air, and I've definitely grown infatuated with a lot of favorite spots, and friends as well. So that's also why I'm so adamant about pushing my agenda in terms of how I want us to be coming, in what level, and how I want us to look when we come here, because it's something worth fighting for.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of bands say the same thing. It's always great coming here. It's always really nice, very, very nice people, very positive crowds, and Cherry Bar and Frankie's Pizza and all that shit, So so I'm not very original in that, but so bottom line, very good.
Excellent. We are glad that you do feel so welcomed and enjoy those regular spots. I guess it prompts me to ask, if there is your anonymity, is there a certain part of that allows you more freedom to go out and enjoy these things without necessarily being chased down the street by people like me with album covers wanting signers? Is there a certain enjoyment with that anonymity?
You mean how it was?
Yes, how it was.
Yeah. Frankly, I haven't, throughout the years that we have been on tour, on an everyday today basis, having been on tour, out on the road, hasn't felt very anonymous.
Okay.
There were always people that knew who I was, or recognized me. So that hasn't changed much, and me being a rock divey kind of guy, attracting rock divey kind of people.
Yeah.
If I turn up into a rock dive, like Cherry Bar, even 5 years ago, people would know who I was. So that it hasn't gone from like, oh, I was completely unknown, no one knew who I was, to everyone knowing who I am. People still don't. The change is not that dramatic.
Indeed. I pick up on a little bit of disappointment, and that might be just my observations that are incorrect, but I can't help but pick up a little disappointment that you can't have that complete anonymity and still be behind the mask. Is there any accuracy to that, or it doesn't really matter?
I think that any disappointment would be more from a aesthetic point of view.
Indeed.
I have, as most other rock artists or pop artists or indie rock artists as well, they, especially in the indie world, there's like this virtue that, oh, we don't want to be known, we don't want to be recognized, we don't want to be anything, but why are you standing on a stage? You want to be recognized.
Absolutely.
That's just a lie. Most artists that choose to stand on a stage, they do so in order to achieve some sort of recognition. That doesn't mean that they want all the recognition in the world. It just means that you're doing it for some sort of recognition, even if you are in an extreme grindcore band. If you don't want to be recognized in any sort of way, I mean recognized for your art, you shouldn't even stand on the stage. So as a individual who's very exhibitionistic and definitely wants to be seen, I have no problem with the idea of becoming known. However, that was not the plan for Ghost originally. The plan for Ghost was to be masked, and that was sort of treated as being anonymous. But I said for many, many years that there's a big difference between being anonymous and not anonymous and unmasked. And as far as I'm concerned, we are still a masked band. In our presentation, on stage, or through our channels, as in our Facebook, our website, whatever, you will always see the vision that I want to dictate.
Yes.
And that is not this. You will only see this when it's media or outlets that we are not. That's not ours. Because this I'm doing for people to go to see ours.
Indeed.
And that's where you won't see this.
It's of critical importance, I guess, to understand that. But from my point of view, this is the first privilege I've had to sit down with you and actually chat. I can't help but reflect that from Papa Emeritus 1 through to Papa Nihil and now to Cardinal Copia. Cardinal Copia is more like you. He's charismatic. He's a more attractive figure, a gentler soul, as it were. Is there any truth to these observations? He seems closer to you.
I always try to think of him as something completely different than I. Yeah, that gives me something to think about. But obviously, there's in each of these different characters, there is a part of me, I guess. It's just that you tap into this character and just try to erase your own. I always try to think. I always, joke around that Cardinal Copia, or Papa 3 or 2 or 1, was basically the sort of Neanderthal version of yourself, without any limitation, without any filter, and I suppose that is true to some level or degree. If you give me enough drinks, I'd probably turn into him. That's why I don't drink drinks.
Oh, beautifully put. I can't help but reflect on a couple of years ago in Las Vegas, sitting down with Vincent Furnier and having a very similar conversation. Was Vincent or Alice Cooper an influence on you over the years?
Oh, of course. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
He obviously Alice Cooper drops dead on stage and Vincent Furnier walks off and takes on the human persona of life. But even if we go back to Leviathan, I guess from Superior, or Mary Gore from Repugnant, Crash Diet, there's always been that alternate persona. Has it always been important to you personally, or is it more just the character and the creative side of you and being on stage where that alter ego is important to have?
I think it stems from the fact that when I was a kid, being a fan of Alice Cooper, being a fan of Rolling Stones, being a fan of all these larger than life rock bands, Dee Snider, Nikki Sixx, Blackie Lawless, but also like Roger Waters and David Gilmour. I always thought that in order to become a hero like that, you needed to be from someplace else. So I thought that as I grow up, I need to transform into someone else in order to fit in into the idea of how I wanted rock stars, how I wanted my rock stars. Because I couldn't imagine that there would be someone from my street, my house, living in my room, would be interesting enough to be a rock star. And I think that therefore you see a pattern of enhanced personas in each of these bands, some way or form. And yeah, it sort of dawned on me like fairly recently, like, man, I've worn makeup almost every time I've been up on stage in any band.
Wow.
And I've always had a pseudonym, or in some way or form, like, altered myself into, essentially what it didn't change much from my idea when I was 7 years old to how I am now, being 38 actually. I had to transform into someone else in order to be interesting enough to be, able to be on stage, because I can't really see myself as the kid from Tegelbruksgatan 9 in Linköping to be that person.
Which leads me to ask the obvious question. I mean it with the utmost respect. Whose life do you prefer?
Now I've started to like my own. But for the most of my life, I was very unhappy. Sounds like I was. I don't know if that was a discontent. Was, I guess, the word. I've always been very in favor of becoming someone else and having different possibilities than I had. Now I know that all of the things that I had and I was blessed with was actually in my favor, but when I was a kid I thought that was a disadvantage. And it's just that I've come to a point in life where I have, the therapeutical blessing that I get to talk about these things all the time. So and also that my achievements that I've done as an individual, even though it's been dressed up as another individual, has been applauded as So my background is now valuable. But up until fairly recently, I thought my background was not very good.
Absolutely.
So it's like that's why I feel way more content with life, and then of course because I'm doing well.
Indeed.
Life is good.
Can I thank you, Tobias, for such an honest answer? That's really incredible, and I feel blessed to sit down and discuss this with you. It's incredible to go on such a long journey of your life in such a short period of time. Very much appreciated. If I could ask you one final, very, very selfish question, but when I am blessed to sit down with people like yourself, I like to ask a couple of questions for myself. Square hammer, probably the closest. I think my heart was pounding for an hour afterwards last night. Was there any relationship to Square Hammer, the lyrics, and the Masonic Order?
Yes and no. The lyrics themselves are not about a Masonic order.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for entertaining the question. Greatly appreciated. We are thrilled that you're in Melbourne and absolutely thrilled that you're coming back again, because otherwise the news of you flying out very shortly would make this a very sad day. But we'll look forward to your return. Thank you very much for joining us at Silver Tiger Media for a catch-up and a chat.
Thank you.
Pleasure
Thank you very
indeed.
much.
Greatly appreciated, Tobias.
Thanks.
Thank you very kindly.